Out this morning, networking event here. Able to meet some people. Afterwards, got a good meeting. Excited about it. So here's something that's interesting. Went to this networking event and they talked about having a call sign. And again, I just came here as a guest about a few weeks ago, and they said, Sherman, you came here a few weeks ago. You're a guest, and your call sign of Sherm, the Crazy Asian. Totally love that. Completely memorable. Plus, you wear the three-piece suit, so it's almost like this polar opposite situation. Crazy guy, but yet all polished, pulled together. And so wanted to know the story on that one. And so that's one thing that I would say is it's interesting how it's starting to change, where people are starting to recognize me locally because of who I am and being out there. And it's interesting that now I'm not having to introduce myself as much at meetings because people already know who I am. That's why you get connected and be interested in other people's stories, not talk about your own. Be interested, not interesting. Sherm's out. Great meeting with Rick Secker. After the networking meeting, he and I talked about strategies for his social media. He's writing a book. Wanted to know about how to leverage Facebook specifically, just because we asked first who's the audience that's going to buy the book. He thinks it's going to be someone that's a little bit more technically inclined, thinks it more like it's going to have a higher reading level than your typical entrepreneurial book. So looking for someone that's, almost that college educated, probably 30 to 50 something year old in that age range. And so I said, that's where Facebook's totally the right move for him. And then I said, from a standpoint of posting, look how easy it is. Took a photo of a book that he quoted today at the networking meeting, then took another photo of he and I together, and then I showed him how to be able to publish it by scheduling it. And so showing them just these little tactics that he could do to be able to implement his social media strategy without feeling like it's getting overwhelming. The other thing that I showed him was to be able to, as he thinks about like the demographic on Facebook, as he connects with people, is that he can use his what he's writing as a teaser to get people engaged. Sherm's out. All right, that was a fantastic lunch. John McCune from Quick Trip spoke, and actually it's more difficult, he had mentioned quote-wise, more difficult to get into a job at Quick Trip convenience store, a C store, than it is to get into Stanford from an application percentage approval standpoint. So one of the things that he talked about was the value of hiring right. So one of their core values is the golden rule, and they implement that in business. And so what they actually ask people in their first interview is, can you give us a time that you last did a random act of kindness? In the last 30 days, who has benefited from you? And the last question was, in the last 60 days, can you think of a time where you went out of your way to help someone? And so because of that, they just have some really unique stories of employees going out of the way to help customers. So people will say, well, what are you doing training wise? And this is the guy that's actually the corporate trainer for all 20,000 employees. And he said, the corporate training is not that good. He's like, we hire right. We hire people that identify with themselves as giving good value, that are devoted to doing random acts of kindness. And so that's what's impactful. And so I think a lot of times when people, they look at, their retention rate, or they need to relook at how are they actually bringing people on? How can they be more selective? And then how can they pull from the right pool of individuals? So that was a really great lunch and learn, if you will, to be able to sit and talk about. It was for men to be able to, be a band of brothers, that you don't need to do this alone, that you can, reach out to other individuals and you can find support from your band of brothers. And so that was really cool. This organization, Lead with Power, meets every second Tuesday, every single month. And so it's not an organization, it's just a group of guys that get together. So that was just a ton of fun. And then I'm going to be heading off to a secondhand store. There's someone that wanted some thoughts in regards to what they should be doing from a business perspective. So I'll meet with her, and then it's time to get to the office and get some other stuff done. Do well. Alrighty. So I had a good meeting with Brenda talking about just strategy. And it's always interesting to me to talk to other business owners. And for her, wasn't really motivated by the clothing, by fashion. It was motivated by people. And I find that to be significantly just powerful, that you can find an opportunity to serve people. She left the healthcare industry in just a different capacity, and it still has to be surrounded by people. And so I think sometimes what we forget is that when it comes to business, whether we're building a business or we're serving people and we're selling a product, you're always serving people, and it's an opportunity to be able to have an influence on them and be impactful that way. And so again, it's just another reminder that when it comes to helping others, that's exactly what business is, helping people. Turns out. So here's the C store that's got a harder rate of getting into percentage-wise than getting into Stanford, because they do something different. They hire differently. They treat their employees differently. How's your organization? Got here a little early, able to set up for Lamb of God. We've got a performance. TV crew's coming in. Should be fun.